There we go. I'm going to click this thing up here. Welcome to the Super Duper Podcast Network's presentation of the Rebel Alliance Briefing Room podcast. We will be talking all about Star Wars. I am Kyle John Johansson, and this is Andrew Scott Sutton. That's it, so we're in. So we started out, let me start out again with the history. So let's go. What do you remember, Scott, about Boba Fett when you first saw him in Star Wars?
I remember the ship. I remember him lingering around in multiple scenes.
Right. When the movies were out, the first thing we saw Boba Fett was in Empire Strikes Back, right? He was there with Darth Vader when they were
Carbonite thing or whatever.
Yeah, when he was hiring somebody to go find Han Solo, because Han Solo was a menace or whatever. We first saw him there, and then we saw him again in Return of the Jedi when Luke Skywalker went to rescue Han Solo.
Yeah,
he was in the background lurking around, like you said. But chronologically, in Star Wars time, he was in the Clone Wars episode. I think it was that episode or show where we saw Jango, and Jango says that he was the source of all the clones for the clone army, and he had an unaltered clone that he wanted to raise as his own, and he named him Boba Fett. So that's where we first saw him.
Kid that answered the door.
Yeah, he was the little kid that answered the door. I think he actually had green stuff on when he answered the door too. I can't remember really. He's always been into green, I guess. Anyway, we saw him in the animated series, the Clone Wars. He was in Rebels, and then of course he was in the Bad Batch. I think we only saw him a couple times in the Clone Wars as a child. In the Rebels, he was in there as a child too. He was like a 12 or 15-year-old child, and he was in the Bad Batch also. So we know around that time he was like 12 or 15 years old during those shows, which is, pre everything. So there's all that stuff before then, and then there's the New Hope, the first Star Wars movie, and then Empire Strikes Back. We see him as an adult. So I would say in Empire Strikes Back, he's probably 25 years old or so, right? And then Return of the Jedi, I think that's a couple years later. So, he's like maybe 30 years old by the time Return of the Jedi comes through. And we see him in Return of the Jedi get into a fight, and he bounces around and falls down into the Sarlacc pit and kind of supposedly dies. We think he's dead because nothing survives the Sarlacc pit. I think Jabba said something about that during nothing comes out, you die a slow death of 1,000 years or something like that.
Yeah.
And then the next time we see him it's during the Mandalorian show. He resurfaces, and we don't know why he's resurfaced or how that happens, because he's obviously supposed to be dead. And we kind of see a different guy. He looks a little older. He looks like 40s or so at least, right?
He looks rough.
Yeah, he looks pretty rough. Looks like he's been beat up. And supposedly someone else has found his armor somewhere, and he goes in during the Mandalorian and recovers his armor from this guy, and then helps out our Mandalorian friends for a little while.
Yeah.
And then, we've seen a few clips and everything of what they're previewing for the show. We see him on a throne. We know is Jabba's throne, because it's in Jabba's palace. We see him maybe at a table discussing things with the crime syndicate. We see him, doing other things and whatever. And and that's where the show kind of takes up is, where has Boba Fett been? What has he been doing? What happened to him before Empire Strikes Back? That's kind of what the show's going to be about. So you were saying something about, you didn't understand why he's got the Fennec Shand chick with her.
Yeah.
Yeah. He supposedly she was in the Mandalorian too, and she supposedly died, but maybe we'll find out that Boba Fett found her and saved her, and that's why they're hanging out, because she owes him for saving his life. Brought ourselves up to the present for the show. So right here we played a video of a trailer, and it didn't come through in audio, but we're going to talk about it just a tiny bit here in a second. Sorry about the missing audio, but that was basically a video clip explaining Boba Fett, Book of Boba Fett. So
Yeah.
um,
I think the whole thing, you had our generation of Star Wars. Now this is bringing a ton of new blood into the Star Wars world.
I think so too. I think we talked about some of the animated shows a little bit ago. I think they kind of brought a lot of those people in through the animated shows.
And I didn't realize how long those animated shows have been going.
That one, Clone Wars, has been going for a while, but they took like a 2 or 3 year break before they did the last season that they just released last year. There was a big break in between, but I didn't know they were out there that long either. Rebels
even,
was, yeah. Go ahead.
Even grab the younger kids by doing Lego.
Yep. So I think it'll be interesting too, to kind of explore that a little bit with some of the things we see, because we've got our generation, which is, sorry to say, but older, and then we've got the younger generation that's new to it. They've seen maybe some of the movies, but maybe not all of them. Me, I've seen all of them because.
Well, you got everything in one place now.
Yeah. Disney Plus. Yeah, it's all there, so people can binge watch and stream it all at once. Which we need to do this disclaimer now, since we've been talking about Disney Plus. This podcast is in no way approved, sponsored, or owned by Lucasfilms Ltd., Disney, or Disney Plus, or any of its subsidiaries. All opinions are solely owned by Kyle and/or Scott, and in no way express the views or opinions of their respective employers. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or use of this podcast and its affiliated sites without consent of the Super Duper Podcast Network is prohibited. So, yeah, we've got the legal stuff out of the way. Yeah, so since like I said, we don't have an episode to talk about, because it comes out in 7 days, December 29th. Every day goes by, I get more excited about this show. It looks, as good as The Mandalorian was, this has got to be just as good, because it's really the same team, the same concepts and everything. The Mandalorian, like we talked about, is beyond cinematic. It's a advanced version of a movie every episode.
Yeah,
super well done. Video and graphics are amazing, and acting too.
Yeah.
In there we learn about, like we were saying, Fennec Shand helps our Mando team out for a little bit, and she gets shot, and supposedly killed. And then we, of course, see Boba Fett later on at the end. And you remember, of course, they had Ahsoka in there too.
Yeah.
From the Clone Wars. So kind of like what you were saying before, the Mandalorian has been kind of a jumping point for all the new shows that are coming out. We've got Boba Fett first, and then there's maybe Kenobi or Ahsoka next, and there's one called Andor, which, if I remember right, Andor is one of those moons in Star Wars that got blown up from the Death Star. And I think in the latest series that that one guy that's supposed to be the Han Solo guy, he's from Andor. I think that's the guy. Anyway, let's see. So we did the thing, so let's do a commercial again. Ready?
And now, a word from our sponsors. Does your bald head take a beating from shaving, the sun, and all of the things Mother Nature throws your way? Do ladies look at your dry, sunburnt head and cringe? Well, guys, there's a new product out there in the head care market that promises to rock your head. I mean dome. Looks soft, clean, and touchable, and it's trending #1 through social media and on YouTube. Introducing Dome Armor. It conditions with moisturizers like coconut oil and shea butter, protects with sunscreen up to SPF 45, and enhances your already sexy dome into an irresistible hands-on experience. Keep your dome safe and protected. Get Dome Armor, now available in fresh bacon scent. Sure to get the ladies to come running in fine stores like Walmart and Lowe's. Oh, and for those still struggling with minor hair loss, try Grow Gain. This product will refresh, revitalize, and regrow hair on your dome.
Yeah, I think nowadays I need some of that Grow Gain. Getting kind of thin out there. Of course, I did cut my hair recently, but I need some of that Dome Armor for sure. All right, let's talk about some of those news articles I talked about before. Let me see if I can find it. The first one was we talked about the Chiss person that's supposedly going to be in the Ahsoka series. Ivana Sakano is her name. And, the Chiss, if we remember, is like Admiral Thrawn was Chiss. He's got the blue skin. Those are the Chiss people. And it talks about in here where this person will be part of the show, and we run into him maybe when Ahsoka is out trying to find Thrawn, and as a Bridger from Rebels animated series. So that could be interesting. And this, we've only seen Thrawn, who's a male, of course, but. So there's that one. The other one is also about Ahsoka. Since they're casting all kinds of people. It's got this Natasha Liu Bazuru is the actress that's going to play Sabine Wren. The other Mandalorian person that we've seen in Rebels. She's part of the Rebels crew.
Yeah.
She's the one that paints the graphics and stuff, and she apparently is part of the ruling family on Mandalore, if you remember some of the stuff from Rebels.
Yeah, she was like thrown out or ran away or something like that.
Yeah, and I think if you remember in the Rebels series is when we first see that dark saber that we saw Giancarlo have in The Mandalorian. He came out of that one of those TIE fighters and had this dark saber. We saw her have it first in the Rebels. I think at one point we've seen it before many times, and
Yeah.
I think actually at the end of the Mandalorian, our Mandalorian actually comes in possession of it, and he won it in the battle. So now he's supposedly the supreme ruler of Mandalore.
Yeah.
I don't know if you caught that, but Darth Maul is what his name was.
Darth,
Red and
yeah.
black.
Yeah. He was the the malls or whatever. They were created by witches or whatever. The
Yeah,
sisters,
right. They
the
put a spell
sisters,
to the witch
sisters
sisters.
of the Force or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. They cast some spells and created them or something weird like that,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so there's that. And the last one I had was about our show, and it's the listing of the episodes. We don't have episode names yet. I don't think they'll probably release those until they might release them after Christmas would be my guess. But we have 7 episodes that are going to be in the first run. The first one, of course, is December 29th, January 5th, January 12th, 19th, 26th, February 2nd on my birthday, and February 9th. So it's pretty much 1 week after another. There's going to be a new episode. Yeah, there might be a week in between the 26th and the 2nd. No, that's a week. Okay, yeah. So it's one every week for the first 7 episodes. And my plan, depending on your schedule, Scott, is to record another podcast after every episode. We don't have to do it right away. We can say, let's say the episode runs on the 29th. If we can't do it until, January 4th or whatever, that's fine with me. We just, need to do them in order, basically. I don't know how it works or whatever. We'll figure it all out. That's kind of what we'll do. This episode's a little different because we don't have any episodes out, so we're kind of talking about different things and talking about the history and a couple news things. This is the point where we pimp ourselves. Wanted to say that we can be found on the internet at https://RABR.KyleJohansson.us. That's Ralph Alpha Baker Romeo KAILEJOHANSEN.us. There's an RSS feed listed so you can set up your podcast application. We have complete instructions on how to add our podcast to your application. We've gone with Google Podcast as our application in the instructions, but it should apply to all other podcast applications. You can also find our Twitter, our social media. We have a feedback email. There's a SpeakPipe app on the side where you can record your own recording from your computer and send it to us. And of course, you can play all of our podcasts through the website. So tell all your friends and family that's where we're at.
Wow, all that techie stuff.
All that techie stuff, yeah. Got to teach people how to do some of it because some people don't know how to do all that stuff, right?
Right, correct. I
And
remember that remark.
Yeah. Being the techie person that I am, I try to figure all that stuff out. So natural instinct from being at work is to document what you've tried out. So I try it out and created a little simple documentation to help people through that.
How non-techie I am, I'm so afraid I'm going to break Windows.
Yeah. Then you'll have to get a new Windows installed. Double pane glass with bars on it, right?
Bum.
Exactly. All right. So with that, I'm going to play this thing about our feedback email.
Feedback at KyleJohansson.us. That's feedback at KAILEJOHANSEN.us.
Does that seem like it's really loud when you hear it?
A little bit, but I mean,
looks like we've probably been recording about 20 some minutes now. Yeah, so let's just kind of talk about what we hope to see in the show, and just in Star Wars stuff in general, because as we talked about, there's a lot coming out, and I'm super excited.
I think they'll all feed off each other.
I think so too, and I've seen stuff already where they're going to do the 7 episodes of Boba Fett, and then possibly when Mandalorian comes back in the fall, they might do some more with Boba Fett on the Mandalorian, or he might be on Ahsoka or whatever. The Kenobi show that's coming out.
Yeah,
he's alive during Kenobi times too, so
yeah.
Who knows? But that, and I'm just excited to learn about all these characters that we barely knew anything about. Right? We saw them for an hour and a half in a movie, and don't know hardly anything about them.
Yeah, but they had a immense role. Even what small time they had on film, they produced a lot of storyline.
Exactly. Boba Fett, famously only said 2 complete lines in all the movies.
That's correct.
He said, "As you wish," to Darth Vader when Darth Vader said no disintegrations. He says, "As you wish." And he also said, "He's no good to me dead." When remember at the Cloud City with Lando, they goes into that big dining room, and Darth Vader's there.
Yeah,
and Boba Fett's there too.
Yep.
That's when he says he's no good to me dead, as he's taking him off in carbonite and stuff like that too. So, yeah, he's got very few, and we're getting a whole series about him. It's just kind of exciting.
He nodded a lot.
He did. He did. I have a video clip of him in the new series where he's drinking a cup of coffee and he's nodding. What do you think? Should we wrap it up now, Scott?
Yeah, that worked.
All right, so let's wrap it up. You have been listening to the Super Duper Podcast Network presentation of the Rebel Alliance Briefing Room. I am Kyle John Johansson, and that is Andrew Scott Sutton.
Yeah.
That's me. So hurry back. We're going to be by your side through as much of the Star Wars stuff as we can handle. Thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you soon. Don't be afraid to go to our social medias and give us as much feedback as possible. Thanks for joining.
Goodbye.
So we recorded that.
Yay.
Let me stop recording.